This lesson is taken straight from my Syntakt Mastery Course. If you want to dive deeper and get the full training, check the link below. You can also sign up for an exclusive discount, and when you do, I'll send you more details about the course and how it can level up your music. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a few different options that are available, including stuff that's on the trig page, just to cover all bases so you know exactly how to operate every part of the filter. So what I'm going to do is just put in some random notes or trigs, and then what we're going to do is just set this up. So we've got a bit of envelope amount there with a bit of decay. And what I want to touch upon next is how the release works in conjunction with the note length. So if I bring the note length all the way down to 132, so it's really short, and take the release down of the amp and the filter, you'll notice that when I bring the amp release up, it allows the note to continue, but the filter is not continuing. So if we bring the release up, it just means that when the note is released, it allows the cycle of the envelope to continue. So if we go to the keyboard mode, and if I turn the release all the way down, and the release all the way down of the amp as well, so when I let go of the key, it's not continuing the amp or the filter, but if I hold it down, it will allow these to do their full cycle like this. But as soon as I let go, it stops it. So if I bring the amp release up now, the amp's continuing, but the filter's not, unless I hold it. So what I can do now is bring the filter release up, and it will allow both of the amp and the filter cycles to continue. And that goes the same as well if you've got something more intricate like, you know, attack and decay and sustain going with the release. But what you'll notice now is it goes straight to the release portion. It doesn't actually continue the whole thing. So you have to hold it still, but if you turn the release off, it goes straight back to 0. So if you bring that back up, bring the sustain up a bit. So wherever you land, wherever you stop and pull off, it will just kind of tail off. And now we've got it set up this way, let's just quickly talk about the filter envelope reset. So I don't end up using this that often, but I'll show you what it does with a setup like this. So what we've got is, let me just make this shorter actually. So right, okay, so we've got a bit of a faster cycle, and if I hit a note, let that run off, hit another note, it'll reset to the beginning. But if I go into the second page and turn the FENR off, which is the envelope reset, watch what happens now. It won't reset until it's done its full cycle. So if I go, you'll notice it didn't reset, but if I do this, so also worth noting that as well. Let's leave this on, and then next we've got the delay. So if I bring the delay up, not getting anything, and then all of a sudden it comes up. Let's just get rid of the attack. So you can see the delay actually shows up there. So if we put the delay on all the way up, you can see it takes quite a while for it to come through. Let's just bring that back a little bit more. Pretty cool. Quick reminder, this video is just one piece of my full Syntakt Mastery Course series. If you want the complete system, sign up with your email using the link below. You'll get a discount plus more info on what's inside the course. Right, so next what I'm going to show you is, let's just set this back up again by resetting everything. Bring this cutoff down. So the next one I want to show you is on the trig page, we've got this filter trig, which basically tells the envelope of the filter, or tells the filter to re-trig when I hit a note. So it's not working now, and then if I turn it on, it works. Pretty simple and basic on first look, but it is actually really, really useful. So if you've got a sequence like this, you can have some notes re-triggering the filter and some of them not. So if we put a 16th in, and then just make some of them re-trig, yeah, so I thought that was a really cool trick using the filter retrig to add trigs on, say, like every single step or almost every single step, and then just having a few of them retrig. And instead of just making a pattern that looks like that with retrigs on, you end up with something that's continuous, but not all of them are getting that envelope added to the filter retrig. So yeah, really cool little method. I like that. So what I'm going to do now is just go through the different filter types again, because we didn't cover all of them in previous modules, and I just like to focus on all of the different ones and show you how you could potentially use them. So we all know the first one, which is low pass. Use that all the time for basses and leads. And we've also got the high pass as well, which is great for knocking out the lower frequencies. So obviously low pass is knocking out the high frequencies, and a high pass is knocking out the low frequencies. We've also got band pass, which knocks out both high and low frequencies. So I'll show you what that sounds like if we bring in an LFO to modulate the resonance, put it on retrig, set it to random, just bring the speed right down. So with an example like this, on a low pass it sounds great, we keep in the lower frequencies, but if you've got a bass somewhere, you might not want all of this low energy, so then you could potentially use a high pass. But then with a high pass, that might sound better because you're losing the lows, but then you're also bringing all these highs in. You might have some other frequency content like hats, and you might not want to overshadow that with the high frequencies from this synth. So then what you could do is go band pass, and then nicely we knock out the low and the high, and we get like a really clean version of doing that or that. And it really just focuses on a bandwidth for frequencies. That's where I could potentially use band pass. Also, band pass sounds great when modulating with an LFO. Sounds cool as well. Let's just have a look at some others. So we've also got the notch. So this one, you can use this to really notch out a problem frequency or an area, but where I would tend to use this is modulating. So there you go. Get that kind of weird, phasey, robotic sound. Could add a bit of attack to that as well, and bring the envelope up a bit. Don't tend to use it that often, but it's there. We've also got, we'll come back to that one in a second, peak. So let's just go back to the LFO again and use that same example as before. So we've got the sample and hold, bring this down. So with the peak, The reason why I brought that example back up again is because we can show the difference quite easily by comparing. So with the low pass, we're knocking out the highs. High pass, we're knocking out the lows. Band pass, we're knocking out both the highs and the lows. But with a peak, we're bringing up that resonance, but we're not knocking out any of the frequencies. We're just boosting the frequencies wherever the cutoff point is. So it's really easy to wrap your head around it if you just use them as an example. So knocking out the highs, knocking out the lows, knocking out the highs and the lows, not knocking out any of the highs and the lows, and leaving all the frequencies in. Also, peak's really good as like an EQ tool if you just want to boost a specific frequency, which is what I use it for quite often. And then we have also got the, let me just bring that down, the shelf. So this is a low shelf. Now a low shelf normally boosts, and it does look like it's boosting the lows, but actually this is a bit of a weird one because it's decreasing the highs really, because if you go to the low pass, listen to the volume, it's kind of the same, and they've probably done that on purpose. Actually what it is probably a low shelf, but then they're decreasing the volume after the low shelf, so you're not boosting the gain too much when you click onto this. So yeah, with this, the way to compare it is if you've got low pass filter doing that, and then we go to the low shelf, to me it kind of gives the impression a little bit of like a 12 dB filter. I know it's not, I know like a 12 dB filter will cut off a lot earlier, but there isn't a 12 dB option in this. We've just got like a low pass filter, I think it's 24. But sometimes I like to use like a 12 dB filter or maybe a 6 dB filter, which allows some more of the highs to come through. So that's probably the closest option we can get to that. You've got like this low pass filter, but then it allows some of the highs in. Very weird way of looking at it is actually just a low shelf, but not quite a low shelf actually though, because a low shelf, you would use another parameter like that to boost the lows higher or lower to add more bass into a sound. The way I would use a low shelf is like, let's say if I've got this sound here, that's my bass sound, right? But then the way I've set up, say like the synth, maybe I'm losing some of the sub. So then what I would do then is I'd keep that there, then I would use another filter. We haven't got that option in here. In fact, we have got that option. So if I go to the effects track as an example, and no, we haven't got that option, sorry. But yeah, what I would do is I would use a filter on top of that filter to, a low shelf to boost the lows. So what you would see is like a little bump there on the EQ. Any of you that have used like a Pro Q or an EQ in Ableton, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll put a little low shelf there and you'll just boost the sub a little bit, brings a little bit more sub into it. That's where I would use a low shelf. On the Syntakt, I would probably use this low shelf as like a pretend 6 dB or 12 dB filter. Not quite that, but it allows some of that fizziness to come through. So this is quite dubby sounding. But if I want some of those top frequencies to come through, then I could go for that, and you can just hear them coming through now. So that's where I would use it. And then we've also got high shelf as well, which is the same, but the opposite way. So low shelf, high shelf. It's also worth noting as well that these filter types that we've gone through, because we're on an analog track, these are analog filters that are available on the analog tracks, but we do have some more options available, or different options available on the digital tracks. So if we copy these trigs over to, say, track 2 and paste them in, and then just select another synth. So let's go for SY tone. And look at the filter types on a digital track. So again, we've got low pass, we've got high pass, but then we get to the EQs. So these aren't available on the analog tracks. So we're a bit limited in terms that we've only got a low pass and a high pass on the digital tracks, but we do have the bonus of having the EQs. So the EQs work the same way as band EQs on any kind of VST EQ, where you can basically select the notch type. So you can see there, if you go to EQ1, we've got a wide notch and it looks like that. And then if we go through the different EQs, you can see it gets thinner and thinner. So this becomes the notch width. And then with the resonance, you can go plus or minus. So you can boost a frequency, or you can notch a frequency. And you can make that thinner or wider to cover a wider bandwidth. So that can be quite useful with sound design. Another thing to note as well with the digital tracks is that we also have a second filter, which is also super useful, and this is available on the Digitakt as well. We've got a high pass and a low pass, and this is super useful when you've already set up a filter on the first one. Maybe you've got something like that going, and then you just want to kind of roll off some of the sub to let the kick come through. You can just use that as a utility filter to just high pass that out. That's how I tend to use it quite often. So it's also worth taking a look at the effects block as well, because we actually have some extra options for the filtering on the effects block. So what I'm going to do as a demonstration is go back to track 9 and make sure that the filter page is cleared. So we're not adding any filter type or bringing the frequency down or anything on that track. And what I'm going to do is just press function and effects and send that sound into the analog effects block. Then I'm going to hold track, press effects, and then you can see I'm now on the analog effects block. And we're going to go through the different filter types on here. So you can see we've got some different options available that are not available on the digital or the analog tracks. So you could use this as a workaround, as an example, to get a 12 dB low pass filter instead of just the 24 dB. So what I'm going to do for this is, I think I already did it earlier. Yeah, so let me just backtrack. So to show you how to do this. I'm on, yeah, that's right, I'm on the analog effects block. Sometimes it gets a bit tricky, I think, when you're going between the tracks and the analog effects block, because sometimes it looks similar and you can't tell which one you're on. So I'm going to go back to track 9 and hold function and copy, so it copies the trigs. This is really important. And then we're going to go to the effects block, which I am now on, and paste those trigs in. These won't do anything apart from re-trigger the LFO, the filter, and the amp. So it's the filter re-trig that we're after. Without that, if I turn that off and bring this down and put the envelope mount off, so actually if I could just turn them off, bring that back on, nothing's happening. As soon as you put some trigs in, it initiates the filter. So what I want to do is just copy them trigs over for track 9, and then this becomes the filter for track 9. So the first one that we've got is LP4, which is basically a 24 dB low pass analog filter. If we turn this to the right, then we get our 12 dB, which, as you can hear, allows some more of the buzzy top frequencies to come through. And I often find myself going for a 12 dB if it's like a leady bass type sound. If it's like a really dubby bass, and I'll go for 24 dB. Bandpass, pretty much the same. We've got high pass. We've also got the notch filter as well, which is pretty much the same. But then we also have notch 2, which doesn't show up on here, but you can see that it's 2 notches side by side. And that sounds much more effective when modulating it than the 1 notch. And then we actually have a low pass plus a notch before the cutoff point. Again, not something I find myself using that often, but it's there. With all of these as well, you can change the width as before, and that's pretty much it. But the main standout one for me is not only having obviously the analog filters, but it's having access to a 12 dB low pass filter as well. I wish they would put them on the tracks, but I'm not sure if it's possible with the architecture that's already in there. So yeah, we've got that. But yeah, it's worth noting, there's a couple of things with this. If you want to use it that way, you've got to make sure that your trigs are copied over. You've also got to make sure that if you go into the mute mode, I do this all the time and forget about it. If you're in mute mode, sometimes that will be off. So that's just one lesson. There's loads more waiting inside the full Syntakt course. If you want to see what's included and grab a discount, sign up with your email using the link below and I'll send you all the details. I'll see you in the next video.